Hello. Hi. Just for the next session, I'm just going to say to the technical team at the back, please keep the microphone open from here on in. There's no need to have it turned off. Thank you very, very much. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. I hope the breakout sessions were useful. I'm very, very pleased to report that I have the recommendations. Not all of them are operative, but they are certainly taken on board by the EGA and will be applied. This resolution, which we will be voting upon later, will include actions that governments can take. So the final resolution you will see will be much more focused on government actions and government-led initiatives. Anyway, without further ado, we come to our last session of a conference, which is entitled Cross-Border Unity: How Can Communities Work Together to Amplify Their Voice? But before we do that, we've just spent the morning reminding ourselves why it is that we fight as Jewish communities and why we refuse to give up. And my dear colleague, Tal Rabina, has with him a fine, upstanding gentleman who firmly comes from that tradition of fighting and not giving up and defending and standing up for your country, for what you believe in. And I'm not going to spoil it any further, other than to hand it over to my colleague, Tal Rabina, the Director of Strategy for the EGA, to introduce our next special guest.
Thank you, Alex. It wasn't part of the plan. It is not written anywhere. But this request, we just simply couldn't refuse. Mr. Marie, if you recall, talked yesterday evening about a young gentleman who was just coming out of Gaza and told him his story. And it wasn't just an inspiring remarks by Douglas Marie, but a real story of a real young person who is with us. And this young man is Captain Ohevia Sharabi. Today he's here with us as a journalist from Arut Sheva, but he is not asking to speak from his pen, but from his heart. And we took the liberty of spending a few more minutes because it is very, very touching, and I'm sure we're all going to be inspired by him. So, Ohevia, please.
שלום לכולם, שמי אוהביה שרבי, אני עיתונאי בערוץ 7. האמת שהגעתי לכאן כדי לסקר את הכנס ולא לדבר, אבל אחרי ששמעתי את הדברים שהדוברים פה דיברו, וראיתי גם את עמוד השער, לבנות או לעזוב, זה צבט לי בלב.
Hello, everybody. Microphone one, thank you. Hello, everybody. My name is Ohevia Sharabi. I was not meant to speak. I'm here as a journalist by Channel 7 from Israel. But listening to you and watching the cover of the booklet, Building or Living, I just felt I have to say some things to you.
עד לפני בערך שבוע עוד הייתי בלחימה בעזה כקצין וכלוחם. חברים שלי והמפקד שלי גם נרצחו לי מול העיניים בקרבות בעזה. אני אישית, טיל פגע בי במיגונית, במרחב מוגן שהייתי בו בעוטף עזה בלחימה אחרי 7 לאוקטובר, בזמן ניקינו את כל עוטף עזה ממחבלים.
Just until a week ago, I was an officer fighting in Gaza. Unfortunately, another officer of mine and soldiers of mine were murdered in front of my eyes, and I experienced a missile, a rocket, just getting into the shelter I was in.
אחרי כמה שבועות אחרי ה-7 לאוקטובר, צה"ל נכנס לתמרון קרקעי בעזה.
Few weeks after the October 7, the IDF got into Gaza to fight on the ground.
החטיבה שלנו, חטיבת ירושלים, קוראים לה, קיבלה משימה לפתוח את ציר נצרים ולכבוש ולתאר ממחבלים ומאמצעי לחימה את אחד מהכפרים בתוך עזה.
My brigade, the Jerusalem Brigade, mission was to get into the Netzarim route. It's the route that crosses Gaza, and to make sure that we conquered the neighborhoods there and make sure that there will be no more terrorists over there.
כשהתחלנו להיכנס לבתים, כל בית שאנחנו נכנסים, כמעט כל חדר, חדר שינה של ההורים, של הילדים, בכל מקום, אנחנו רואים את ההסתה ואת השנאה שיש להם ליהודים.
Every house we got into, every room we got into, whether it's the parents' room or the children's room or any other place in the house, we just saw on the walls the incitement against Jews.
ראינו שם את הצלבי קרס, ראינו ציורים של סכינים ודם עם תמונות של יהודים וחיילים, ספרים של היטלר, בכל מקום, כל בית.
Every house had swastikas, has drawings on the walls of knife and blood and dead Jews, just everywhere.
הייתי מופתע ממש מרמת השנאה שיש להם כלפינו, כלפי העם היהודי. אחרי שסיימנו שמה, נכנסנו גם לכבוש בתי ספר שיש שם מחבלים ואמצעי לחימה.
I was amazed by the amount of the incitement and the hatred they are educating upon. And after clarifying the houses, the resident houses, we got into schools, which became headquarters for Hamas terrorists and other organization terrorists.
אנחנו נכנסים לכיתות, כמובן שאנחנו מוצאים נשקים שם ופירים של מנהרות שיוצאים מאזור הבית ספר.
Within those classrooms, we found a lot of weapons, ammunitions, and holes getting into tunnels from the schools.
אבל גם שם, בכיתה א', כיתה ב', מקום שאנחנו היהודים לומדים להגיד מודה אני בבוקר, או בבתי ספר אחרים של לא יהודים שלומדים ABC, שמה לומדים, פותחים את הבוקר עם שנאה של יהודים. היה על הלוח עוד מצויר, כתוב בגיר, כל מיני דברי הסתה נגד יהודים, ככה מתורגמן שלנו, של הערבית, כאילו זה מה שהוא תרגל לנו.
Unlike our schools, when the kids are starting their day with a prayer or a lesson of some core studies like math or English, when we got into those classrooms, we saw how they teach incitement. It was written on the blackboard, how can we kill Jews?
זה שנאה עמוקה ליהודים, גם ליהודים ולא רק לישראלים.
It is a real horrible hatred towards Jews as Jews, not just against Israelis.
אני מגיע מבית חרדי, מחברה שלא כולם עושים צבא.
I come from a Haredic ultra-Orthodox family, from a society that not necessarily everybody are serving in the army.
חוץ ממני, יש לי עוד 5 אחים לוחמים, שגם בזמן הזה, בזמן שאני פה, הם נמצאים חלק באזור בצפון, חלק בעזה.
But yet, I still, being a Haredic ultra-Orthodox family, I have 5 more brothers who are fighting right now, some of them in Gaza, some of them in the northern.
כשמדובר בהגנה על עם ישראל, למרות שאני לא נכנס לפוליטיקה, מי הולך לצבא, מי שיושב ולומד, אני חושב שמי שיושב ולומד תורה אשריו, היה לי קשה, אז הלכתי לצבא, להילחם.
For me, there is no question, although I do believe that whoever studied the Torah is defending the state of Israel, but I decided to defend Israel by fighting, so I went to the army.
אז נכון, עכשיו הגעתי לפה כעיתונאי, אבל אחרי כל מה ששמעתי ואחרי כל מה שעברתי בלחימה, היה לי חשוב ולהגיד לכם את הדברים כיהודי, כלוחם, כמישהו שראה את הכל בעיניים.
So yes, I'm here as a journalist, but it is very, very important for me as a soldier, as an officer, as someone who just come back from the battlefield to tell you the followings.
אני עומד איתכם פה היום במדריד בכנס החשוב הזה, כי ברור לי שמה שהיה ב7 לאוקטובר זה משהו שמתחיל ומתפשט בכל אירופה, ואני רואה את זה, אני יושב בבית, אני רואה את זה בטיק טוק ובאינסטגרם, את כל ההסתה שיש נגד היהודים, ואני אומר לעצמי, וואו, כל הכבוד לקהילה היהודית שנמצאת באירופה, בכל העולם, בפרט פה באירופה, ושכולכם התכנסתם לפה, ולחשוב על הצעד הבא, לא לחכות כמו בישראל שהגיע 7 לאוקטובר ואז התחילו לחשוב. אתם מקדימים תרופה למכה.
It is very inspiring for me to see you, ladies and gentlemen. After 7 of October, you are not waiting. You are here, and I see in all the social medias the fight you have. I see in social media all the incitement you are experiencing, and it is very inspiring for me to see how the Jewish communities in Europe are not waiting, as unfortunately some of us in Israel waited, but are very active and are taking and making sure that they are ready to the next step.
לסיום, בשמי ובשם, אני מאמין, כל החיילים, אני רוצה להגיד לכם תודה רבה על העשייה שלכם. אני אישית לא יכול לבוא ולעמוד עם הנשק מחוץ לקהילה היהודית ולהגן עליכם, ולכן עם ישראל באירופה זכו בכם, שאתם עושים את זה בדרכים שלכם, אז רציתי להגיד לכם ממש תודה רבה וישר כוח.
So just for those of you who did not understand the Hebrew, on my name and behalf, I do believe, of all my fellow soldiers, I want to thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for doing whatever you are doing to defending the Jewish people and the Jewish diaspora in Europe. I cannot come and watch you guys with my weapon in your communities, but I salute you for your action, for your leadership, and I thank you for doing so. תודה רבה.
Okay, so we're just about to start our panel discussion, but before that, I just wanted to share a very short video with you regarding the work of the EGA, and some of the new communities would have joined us as well. So let's just take a couple of minutes, we'll have a look at a video, and then we'll get stuck into the final panel. Thank you.
The EGA is 100% dedicated to strengthening Jewish identity and defending Jewish interests, bringing hundreds of communities together for the cause. We continue to grow as more and more communities find their place beside us, working together on the issues that matter, and enjoying the benefits of being connected to a whole greater than the sum of its parts. Jewish unity in times such as these has seldom been so important. There is strength in numbers, and at the EGA, we can all advocate together, presenting a unified force, a unified voice, in a unified position, not just to fight hate, to fight our corner in freedom of religion, on Israel, and on the safety and growth of our communities as a whole. Our continued growth isn't possible without you. The communities, we are delighted to welcome the following communities who in 2025 joined the already hundreds of Jewish communities affiliated to the EJA. The EJA is delighted to welcome our new partner communities and organizations: the Jewish community of Albufeira, Spain; the Bukharian Jewish community of Vienna, Austria; the Merseyside Jewish Representative Council, UK; the Jewish Representative Council of Manchester and Region, UK; the Jewish community of Firenze, Italy; the Jewish community of Créteil, France; Movimiento contra la Intolerancia, Spain; Jewish community of Valencia, Spain; Jewish community of Torremolinos, Spain; Jewish community of Marbella, Spain; Jewish community of the Balearic Islands, Spain; Jewish community of Girona, Spain; Nurworking in Paris, France. The EJA, together we are stronger.
Para nosotros ha sido un gran honor pertenecer a la Asociación Judía Europea, tangible como por ejemplo las matzot que nos han mandado en Pesa, pero intangible el grandísimo apoyo que nos está proporcionando esta asociación a nivel europeo y sobre todo tener una voz unida y conjunta de todos los judíos. Quisiera agradecer especialmente al señor Juan Caldés, que es el que nos hizo firmar este convenio, que ha sido todo un acierto para nuestra querida Keila.
I just want to say for everybody that we are working already more than a year with EGA and we find it a very, very good cooperation. Rav Margulin and all his teams are very, very professional. I went to Auschwitz in January and I saw how good the organization was and I was very impressed. And I hope that you could do furthermore this work. It's very, very important for all of the European Jewry. Thank you and good luck.
At no time since 1945 has it been more important for European Jewry, be it secular or Orthodox, to stand together. That is why I support the EJA.
We, the Jewish community of Oporto, have decided to join the EJA because it is by far the strongest organization in Europe to represent Jewish communities. Our vision and values are very well aligned. Jewish communities should not stay isolated. We need one another to grow stronger.
As the Jewish community of Trieste, we have decided to join EJA because we believe that it is indispensable to use every opportunity to represent our reasons as a community of the Gola to the outside world. At this time of explosion of anti-Semitism and all our closeness to the state of Israel in particular now, that is a fighting and unwanted but a necessary war after the cowardly attack of October the 7th.
I work already several years with European Jewish Association because I know that these people make everything possible and sometimes even impossible for all Jews in Europe and for Israel. They make everything for child survivors, for Shoah survivors, for young generation, that Jews can live safe in Europe, that Judaism exists in Europe and that Israel will be also safe. Am Israel Chai, Eretz Israel Chai. Amen. Shalom.
Je représente 8 communautés, Perpignan, Narbonne, Béziers, Sète, Montpellier, Castelnau-le-Lez, Nîmes. Nous sommes un consistoire extrêmement dynamique, mais nous avons besoin de l'association EJA parce que cette association nous défend au niveau européen. Je tiens à féliciter très chaleureusement son président, le rabbin Menachem Margolin, ainsi que le président du consistoire de Paris, mon ami Joël Mergui. C'est grâce à lui que nous avons pu, il y a quelques années, adhérer à cette association.
Sorry about that. That was a bit of a sudden ending. I was in the middle of doing something else. I do apologize. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd now like to introduce to moderate the final panel of this conference my esteemed colleague, Ruth Wasserman-Lande. Thank you, Ruth.
So we'll do it relatively quickly because we don't have too much time, but I'm very, very honored to be able to speak about something that is extraordinarily close to my heart, and that's Jewish unity and unity in general. So I'm very honored to call to the stage my dear friend and a very significant activist and a player in Israel, Ms. Monica Lev-Cohen, social entrepreneur and non-profit leader. Monica, please come to the floor. Mr. Maurice Cohen, the president of the Representative Council of the Jewish Communities in Ireland, also a very good friend. We are very honored. Ms. Julia Cekalina, the president of the Jewish Community of Fürth in Germany. Julia, where are you? I don't see Julia, but she was here a moment ago. There you are. Ms. Cekalina is also joining us, the president of the Jewish Community of Fürth in Germany, and Mr. Mordechai Guanich, president of the Jewish Community of Melilla from Spain, of course. Now, bear with us. This is going to be a rather complicated exercises because we have 3 languages in the panel, Spanish, Russian, and English, so you can already prepare yourselves with a translation unless you know all languages, in which case you're brilliant. Okay, so I'll start with you, Monica, with your permission. We have a very big, very complicated question of how can Jewish communities in Europe cooperate with Israeli organizations and other NGOs, despite the differences, the distance, and the language barriers, to better support Jewish life on the continent?
Thank you, Ruth. Can you hear me?
No.
No.
No?
Now? Okay. So, hello everybody. Just a few words. You know, I lived in Sweden for 4 years. It was during the second Intifada. And I remember the experience as an Israeli, like I just talked before that about it with Shai from ICE. In Israel, you are a majority, a Jew as a Jew. I think it was the first time for me to be a minority and to feel anti-Semitism in the worst way. I would like to bring into this conversation a Jewish community that usually is underrepresented here in those conversations. I would say even sometimes neglected, and is very significant in the last few years in Europe, mainly in Germany, Greece, Cyprus, and bringing a new stream of Judaism and even kind of refreshment. Do you recognize this community? I'm speaking about Israelis. And the first thing, you know, when I saw this building or living, it shocked me, because think about that even in Israel, we ask the same question. People are living in the homes in the north, in the south, they were forced, but people are even living in Israel. Some families find a new home today in Europe. And the question is, how can we make an effort to work together with those Israelis abroad? Because sometimes when you look at on Israelis abroad, some of us, maybe I felt it when I was abroad, see it as a kind of anti-Zionist action to leave Israel and live abroad. The other thing is cultural differences. Israelis behave different. I mentioned before that. We used to be a majority, now we are a minority. And the last thing is the Judaism, because Jewish communities mainly work together because of it starts with religion. It's also culture, it's also other stuff, but mainly religion. And when Israelis go abroad, many of them are secular, and they build their own communities. And the thing is that if you look around you, in your own communities, I'm talking about Germany, that Shai is here, that Shai Deutsch, and I'm speaking about Netherlands, where you can see that Machon Keilot started its own programs, and other communities in Cyprus, in Greece. And you think about maybe how can we engage them to our activities, because they can bring some more refresh and enrich the community with other life. And the next question I will give you even some examples. And to summarize with the issues that we discussed in our conversation before in the round tables, first of all, why? Why it was mentioned in the video before. We are stronger together. And if you won't work together, what will be on? If we manage to work together, whether it will be among Jewish communities between us, the Jewish communities here in the room, Jewish communities with Israeli organization, like you can see the WZO, and that with Rachel is here, the World Zionist Organization, the Jewish Agency, and other Jewish prominent leaders. We can then build together something. And what we are missing, and that was mentioned in the previous discussion that I was part of, is first of all messaging, one clear message that we all believe in. We don't need to discuss political ideas. It's the issue of people are against us because we are Jews, just of that fact, as Chovevia mentioned before.
So Monica, can I ask you quickly, when you say that there's a new breed of organizations, Israelis, or rather communities even, you're optimistic that we can overcome the differences and in the diaspora, in Europe, actually combine forces and work together?
Absolutely, and we can see examples. If you go, let's take in United States, there is a new organization that established IAC, Israeli American Organization. They are working all over the United States. I don't know if you're familiar with them. And they're working on legislation, and they're working together with the Jewish communities, combining Jewish and Israelis together, working to lobbying for Israel, and also bringing something new. For example, I'll give you a small one. In New York, the Jewish communities had a challenge with unaffiliated young Jewish students who are not coming to the shuls anymore. And they were very worried about losing their young generation. And when Israeli communities established the Shishi Chofshi, Israeli services at Saturday night, they found out that young Jewish generation are coming there. And they found a way to affiliate them to the community. So this is one example how we can affiliate and engage the young generation to our Jewish communities, and also to work together on other issues as legislation and fighting anti-Semitism.
Thank you, Monica. Thank you for your optimism. We need it. Maurice, you certainly stand at the head and at the helm of a very, very challenging arena. And yet, Maurice, you smile. Please explain.
Just repeat that last bit.
Please explain your smile, your optimism, how we can actually overcome. But remember, the whole narrative of this panel is working together to better the Jewish people's position in Europe.
Well, first of all, I think perhaps the fact that I was blessed with a face that mainly smiles has got me into places that can benefit us as a community. I have been told that because of my attitude and my smiling face, I have the ear of the Irish Prime Minister and the Irish Deputy Prime Minister and many of, or all of the Irish Cabinet. So you could ask the question, well, since I have their ear, why can't I change what Ireland is doing? And that's a very, very long story as to why I can't particularly change it, and I won't go into it now. It's for another day. But I do believe that we need to review, certainly Europe-wide, our messaging. I think we need to have it very simple. And while Monica was speaking, I was actually just thinking of some things. You were talking about the Israeli community. Well, in Ireland, if I project 20 years from now, the Irish Jewish community are going to be Israeli. There won't be people like me whose grandparents and great-grandparents came from Lithuania or Eastern Europe. They will be Israeli. We've also discovered, as I'm sure many of you have, that most of the Israelis that come to Europe are secular. However, and the question that Monica raised and Shai raises is, how can they be involved? And one could go into long-standing explanations, but somehow I've stumbled on 3 or 4 or 5 words. And that is, I ask them, do you want your grandchildren to be Jewish? And that one phrase makes them stop and think. And we have found, as I believe other Israeli communities around the world have found, that after 6 to 8 years of trying to live their lives as if they were in Israel, it doesn't work. And they slowly start remembering some of the Judaism of their parents and grandparents, and they slowly integrate with the community. The other trick, of course, is that we should not be trying to get them to be what we are. We should be allowing Israeli communities to be what they want to be.
In general, Maurice, you're saying something very, very meaningful. Allow different communities, different Jews, to be what they are. Now, isn't that something to think about? And simply embrace them, just so that we can somehow work together with a common underlying factor, simply of us all being Jewish.
Shared memory.
Thank you. Shared memory, that's brilliant. Okay, now I put on and I ask my friend, a newcomer to the EJA, Miss Julia Cicalina, the president of a small yet meaningful Jewish community in Germany, Furt. How do you feel can such small communities in Europe work together despite not only the differences, but the very different mentality of bigger communities, more organized communities, more systematic communities, even in Germany, but certainly outside of Germany, in Europe, to make the life of Jewish people, for example, in your community or in general, better?
Я могу говорить от лица маленьких и средних общин, которые составляют земельный совет Баварии. Существует очень много интересных проектов совместных, которые мы делаем в Германии. Множество из этих проектов можно также перенести на Европу. Я вижу, то есть объединить разных людей можно тем, что у нас есть разные предложения. У нас есть предложения спортивные, у нас есть предложения религиозные, у нас есть предложения светские. Мы проводим детские лагеря, мы проводим, то есть для людей, составляющих общину, но приносящих в нее разную культуру, разный менталитет, можно организовать проекты, которые их заинтересуют. Я вижу небольшую проблематику небольших общин и немецких общин, в том числе, может быть, и европейских. Что существует много интересных проектов, но не все общины открыты для этих проектов, к сожалению. И это своеобразная борьба, чтобы завлечь, привлечь, сделать аттрактивным проекты, которые мы разрабатываем. Это небольшая проблема, которая у нас существует и с которой мы боремся. Также мне кажется, что очень важно, чтобы активная еврейская молодежь шла в политику, шла в интеграционные советы, в те организации, где она может сказать свое слово и что-то серьезное продвинуть.
Would you find that it's helpful for your community to reach out and to be heard by bigger communities in Germany and outside of Europe? In other words, not only in platforms like the EJA, but in general, you're sitting next to the head of the Jewish community in Ireland, you're meeting many communities in this room and throughout the conference. Do you feel that cooperation with them on projects that you mentioned would enhance and strengthen and empower your own community?
Помогло бы в любом случае, потому что каждая община владеет каким-то интересным ресурсом, который можно показать другой общине, который можно, то есть опытом, ресурсом, с которым можно поделиться. И, естественно, для того, чтобы сохранить еврейство в Европе, это одна из самых важных вещей. Так же, как и обмениваться информацией.
Thank you very much. That's very helpful. Thank you, Yulia. Спасибо. Мордехай. Mordechai, how can the very small Jewish community of Melia, with a beautiful history and the tradition that it has, cooperate with other Jewish communities in Spain and throughout Europe, despite the distance, even geographically, and the differences, and of course the issue of the language? How do you propose or think this can be overcome?
Gracias, Ruth. Por situar Melilla, se encuentra como una isla, separada a 200 kilómetros de la península y haciendo frontera con Marruecos. Quiere decir que estamos aislados. No hemos tenido que crear, tener una resiliencia y aprender por nosotros mismos. Hoy tenemos medios de comunicación, tenemos internet, pero hemos estado solos durante más de un siglo, siendo autosuficiente y creando una comunidad autosuficiente. Creo, desde la humildad, que Melilla puede aportar mucho, sobre todo desde que hemos entrado a la EJA, porque hoy en día tenemos que trabajar en conjunto. No podemos ir solos. Necesitamos además comunidades, necesitamos instituciones como la EJA, y yo creo que tenemos que interactuar y aprender. Para ello, pues podríamos crear una página web donde pusiéramos actividades de diferentes comunidades, crear vínculos o medios de contacto entre las diferentes comunidades, a pesar del idioma. Hoy el idioma no es un problema porque tenemos muchas formas para poder traducir con los medios actuales y con la inteligencia artificial. Es una comunidad pequeña, muy homogénea y casi toda ortodoxa, así que no nos encontramos con los mismos problemas que se han planteado aquí en esta mesa. Pero creo que podremos aportar nuestra experiencia, el trabajo que llevamos haciendo años con nuestros jóvenes, el único colegio judío privado de España, con un objetivo claro, que nuestros jóvenes se vayan a estudiar a Israel, y eso está haciendo mermar la comunidad, pero a la vez darle una buena salida. El fruto de más de 150 años trabajando por el judaísmo, quizá lo estamos viendo ahora, con nuestros jóvenes con un buen nivel religioso, pero también un buen nivel sionista. Una comunidad donde la gente va por la calle con kipá, se siente orgulloso de ser judío, no nos ocultamos y todos nos conocen. Y eso, yo por lo que he visto aquí en esta sala, no es lo mismo en todas las ciudades, pues quizá podemos aportar ese diálogo que tenemos continuo, no solamente con comunidades judías, sino con otras comunidades para que podamos vivir en paz y tranquilidad de la ciudad. Y yo creo que en eso podremos aportar bastante a las comunidades europeas.
Thank you, Mordechai. Thank you very much, and kol hakavod for what you're doing, despite not an easy situation. I'd like to take you guys and maybe, push you a little bit further, to be a little bit, ask you to bring an operative kind of solution to the table if possible. Monica, you suggested thinking about creating an organization like the IAC in America, which actually puts together all of the Israelis, and there are quite a number of them, and Jews throughout the United States, to make an impact, to legislate, to demonstrate, to raise their voice. Can you try and give a kind of an operative solution to the people sitting in this room, to the European jury? Again, despite inherent differences, we all know that 2 Jews in a room produces 3 opinions. How do we overcome that? What should those communities in this room and throughout the conference and in general in Europe do, in your opinion?
I'm not sure that the solution will be another organization. I think too many organizations, 2 Jews and 10 synagogues. It's better to have one voice and one consultation, I wouldn't say one organization, but a task force or something like that people from many organizations can sit together and raise one voice, one clear message and action items. Now, the thing is that we know that we are not agree about, even in Israel, on a political situation. There are Jewish organizations who criticize Israel. Especially in Israel. There are Jewish organizations who criticize Israel, which is fine. It's okay. It's okay to criticize a policy. But it's not okay to hate. It's not okay to use violence against people. And if Jews, whatever their political opinion are, feel not safe in anywhere in the world, and among them, of course, are Israelis, this is not okay. So I don't think a route that to create another IEC in Europe will be the solution, but I think to embrace Israelis to the communities will be a good idea and can bring more opinions, ideas, and fresh action items maybe to use. And on the other hand, there's a sentence that we all Israelis who live there abroad says, we got out of Israel as Israelis, but when we turned to Israel, we felt more Jew. No, I think it's, you probably think it's controversial, right? Because if you are in Jewish community, you're a Jew, right? But for me, as a secular Jew, in Israel, I get the Jewishness is granted. But when I lived in Sweden and when I lived in the USA for 9 years, when I came back, I felt that I need to make an effort to keep Jewishness for me and my family. And when I came back to Israel, I brought something with me. I felt like, and I still, this is why I'm here today, I felt as an ambassador to the Jewish, because there is a difference, like if you go in Israel and you ask Israelis about what worried them, they will talk about the political situation, they will talk about the war, they will talk about the hostage, which all of us are, of course, think about. But I think only few of them will talk about anti-Semitism and about what's going on to the Jewry around the world. And I think that if we'll make ambassadors among us to speak in Israel, to speak your voice, the community voice in Israel, this will be also another thing that will definitely help and will push the government of Israel, the Israeli organization, to give a hand in helping the Jewish communities around the world.
So you're saying something beautiful, embrace Israelis to your communities in Europe, and also have Israelis or representatives advocate the fears, the challenges, the opportunities of the Jewish communities in Europe to Israelis. So bridge the gaps between Israelis and Jews in Europe in order for them to be more united and to speak in one voice. Thank you, Monica.
You made it very clear, and the way to do it, Israel is a bridge. They are a live bridge to do that.
That's
they can
beautiful.
make this bridge between those communities.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Maurice. So Ireland, you say, in a few years will be all Israeli, if Jewish. And you are going through a very, very difficult period, certainly. What would your solution, and I heard some very interesting comments that you made in our discussion, be to the Jews of Europe? What should we do together that in your eyes is feasible, it's doable, in order to improve not only Irish Jewry today, but Jewry in general in Europe?
Well, the messaging that comes out of individual countries primarily is, in my opinion, all wrong. We know that for messages to get through to the listener or the viewer, we have to repeat that message, repeat it, and repeat it. We also know that the capacity for the listener or the viewer today is very, very limited. They probably have a memory of a goldfish in a bowl. A few seconds.
Span of turtles.
Just a few seconds. So our messaging has to, Europe-wide, has to be consistent. I don't believe that we should only have one voice, but we should speak with the same voice in different countries. And it is important for the culture of one country to be taken into account. People from other countries should not cross over without the local permission. I think that's very important. We've had numerous cases of people trying to be helpful in Ireland, which actually only exacerbates the situation. But while the messaging has to be very succinct, because the messaging of our enemies is very succinct, it is repeated, and they even have their friends repeating it. We don't have our friends repeating our messaging because we don't know what our messaging is. So how can our friends repeat it? So I think a digital hub across Europe, which will be a resource for all the communities, is very, very important. And I do know that many of the groups that we were talking about said, well, we already have that. The point is, most of us don't know that they have it.
Right. So what you're saying, if I'm, please correct me if I'm wrong, is that we need to first decide on a message broad enough that we can agree on, and it must be succinct and repetitive. In other words, if you're in Ireland or you're in Germany, despite the differences, let's say, in culture, in mentality, in habits, and so on, there needs to be a very plain, clear, relatively simple message that is united, not only for European Jewry, but in general.
Yes, many people, and especially Jews, believe that every time we want to get our point across, we have to download the contents of our brains on every single subject. It's not necessary and it's not effective.
In other words, we can pretend to be simple, short, succinct, and tachlis. Oh, that's a beautiful word. I love it. Thank you. So thank you. That's very helpful. Thank you, Maurice. So, Julia, I would like to ask you, what would you suggest operatively for communities in this room, in this conference?
Translate.
Oh gosh, it's not translating? Translate? Is it something wrong? Is it working? No. Okay. Can I try and repeat? Okay. Yes, yes. Yes, no problem, no problem. So could you please suggest an operative solution that you think is workable, that is that it's possible to do tomorrow, to the other German communities in this room, to the other Jewish communities in Europe? How can you and them working together can benefit your small community in Ford?
У меня, к сожалению, нет никаких рецептов. Я приехала сюда, чтобы слушать ваше мнение, слушать ваши предложения. Как Моника сказала, что очень много существует разных организаций, не нужно придумывать новые. Также и в этом плане есть очень много интересных проектов, и пока новые придумывать не обязательно. Нужно просто расширить границы, нужно как можно больше выиграть аудитории и участников для существующих уже проектов и расширить наши границы нашего земельного совета Германии на европейский масштаб.
So you would say it's not Thank you. So you would say it's not the lack of projects, it's actually reaching out to other communities. First and foremost in Germany, but also in other communities to know you.
Привлечь общины и привлечь разные общины. То есть действительно объединить также общины, в которых есть превалируют немецкоговорящие евреи, русскоговорящие евреи, израильтяне. И тем самым стереть границы, которые нам пытаются навязать. То есть государство пытается нам навязать границу между израильтянами, то есть отделить нас, европейское еврейство, от израильтян. И мы даем понять своими проектами, что нас невозможно разделить. Даже если мы живем в Европе, или родились в Европе, или приехали в Европу, и не жили в Израиле, или не находились долгое время в Израиле, мы все равно единое, у нас одна цель, у нас одна идея, и мы держимся вместе. Это нужно понять как нам самим, нашим общинам, так и правительству, так и городу, в котором мы живем. Потому что существует некое вот такое разделение израильтяне, евреи. Это тоже своего рода работа, которая должна проводиться.
So you are saying you are basically enhancing what was said here before, that in fact the Jewish peoplehood is not Israelis, it's not Jews in the diaspora, it's basically one peoplehood. We should work together, especially after 7th October, that really highlighted this togetherness.
То есть особенно ярко это стало понятно после 7 октября, что мы это единое целое. И мы должны понять, то есть многие из членов нашей общины должны реализовать, понять это сами, также, то есть нести это как внутрь общины, так и за границу общины для неевреев. Это наша цель.
That's actually a very strong emotional call. Thank you. Mordechai, please tell us how in small, beautiful, traditional Melia, you are calling and reaching out to other communities operatively to make the Jewish voice stronger and the Jewish interests more prominent in Europe.
Gracias, Ruth. Estoy de acuerdo con los tres compañeros de la mesa, pero yo aportaría algo más que en Melilla estamos intentando imponer, que es la identidad judía. No hablemos tanto de religioso, yo soy una persona ortodoxa, no hablemos tanto de religión, por favor. Estamos confundiéndonos. No podemos separar a nuestros hermanos judíos porque son más o menos religiosos. Hablemos de identidad judía. Ahí es lo que estoy intentando a través de otras comunidades de España, a través de la Asociación Judía Europea, que nos ayuden. Nos den material para educación, formación para nuestros jóvenes, formación para nuestros líderes, que nuestros líderes sepan el día de mañana lo que ocurre. El 7 de octubre no ha tenido que abrir a todos los ojos. Hemos hablado muchísimo de antisemitismo, pero hemos dejado de lado otra de las preocupaciones que tenemos nosotros, que es la educación. Israel antiguamente nos mandaba educadores. Del 7 de octubre todo el dinero va pues, a las necesidades particulares de Israel. Así que ya no lo tenemos. Europa tenemos que estar unida, crear nuestros propios sistemas educativos donde todos tenemos que colaborar. Nuestros jóvenes son el futuro. Nuestros niños en el colegio van con kipá, petilín todos los días con talit, dicen tefilá, pero también tienen que tener su identidad. Celebramos Yom HaShmaut, Yom HaShoah, Yom Yerushalayim. Esa identidad judía tiene que estar por encima de religión. Religión para mí, para mi casa, para mi hogar. Y ahí creo que es uno de los puntos en el que la Asociación Judía Europea nos tiene que ayudar.
So a quick question. Do the children, the Jewish children of Melilla, do they know Jewish children from Fult, from Ireland, from Israel, from Hamburg, from different cities, from different Jewish communities? Is there a mechanism that allows them to understand that there are other Jewish communities and they can somehow interchange ideas and thoughts?
No, simplemente participan en campamentos con comunidad española, el Taglit, donde se relacionan con hispanoparlantes, pero por eso digo que tenemos que interactuar, tenemos que hacer seminarios, congresos para nuestros jóvenes. Nuestros jóvenes tienen que sentir que hay otros jóvenes con las mismas inquietudes, con las mismas necesidades y la misma mira de futuro dentro de Europa. Y lo que digo, en Europa, aparte de solamente tener una sola voz, tenemos que tener un solo corazón, y es el corazón judío.
Okay, thank you, Mordechai. I would like to summarize, in fact, what has been said here relatively shortly, but in an unprecedented, I feel, clarity. I think that one message was the creation of some kind of a nucleus, a task force that has been mentioned that is a kind of a brainchild of what should be done or how can Jews communicate with one another on the continent. The second thing that has been said here is that messaging must be united, succinct, and repetitious. We do not have that message. We should think what it is. It should be short, to the point, and simple. The third thing is that there's no lack of projects. There are very many projects in different communities. We should just allow the communities to join one another, thereby also learning of each other's existence, but also to enhance those activities because each community brings their knowledge, their experience, and so on. And that happens, but happens not often enough. And very clearly, there's not enough inter-border cooperation, whether Israeli and European Jewry, but also between Jewish communities throughout Europe, for youth and for children and for students. There are, but perhaps we should make more of them so that they can get together, they can learn of one another. And the final and I think most important point is that there is an underlying 3 words. And those 3 words are, whether you're religious or secular, whether you speak Russian or German or Spanish or Hebrew or whatever, whether you are central from a very big, substantial community or a relatively small, relatively new community, you have one thing in common. We all do. We are Jewish. And I think nobody that is Jewish in this room can have an issue, an ideological issue, a political issue with these 3 words. And perhaps that should be the underlying message upon which we can, please God, build cooperation. Because if we are united, I believe we'll be stronger. Thank you for your patience and thank you very much.
Thank you, Ruth, for that informative panel. And despite the language barrier, it's wonderful to hear a common language. And so thanks again. Now, earlier on, we did the breakout sessions. and I want to invite one by one each of the appointed chairpersons of those respective panels to come up and share their recommendations as briefly as possible with the rest of conference. So if we can start off with session 1, how can we make sure governments take responsibility for Jewish safety? And I can see Ellen van Vraag is making her way up here. Thank you, Ellen. And we look forward to hearing what you as chair took as the conclusions from your focused breakout session. Thank you.
Good afternoon. It's already afternoon. First of all, I'd like to thank my group of participants in Group 1. It was a very interesting and very, well, entertaining session. We came up with 3 recommendations. First of all, the establishment of the universal legal definition of anti-Semitism, moving away from voluntary IRA model. This legal definition will have full legal application across the EU. Secondly, a Europe-wide initiative reminding citizens of their obligations as European citizens of tolerance and respect, a fully funded values-based citizens' charter. Third, we should consider, and this is maybe a bit out of the box, we should consider the creation of a pan-European Jewish political party and get Jewish politicians elected. It may be strange, but it may also be a solution. Anyway, these were the recommendations of Group 1. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hélène. Personally, I'd love to see a Jewish political party, and given the makeup of coalitions across Europe and some of the more fringe parties, it would not be on the realms of possibility that we could end up with some Jewish parliamentarians, adding to those that are already in the national parliaments. Moving on, session number 2. How can governments keep Jewish students in universities and schools safe from harm? If I could invite, it looks like Dr. Amira Halperin for the recommendations. Thank you very much. I hope you are a doctor.
Thank you very much. First recommendation is to look at the universities as a whole, talking about both students and members of staff, hence professors and lecturers, in order to mitigate the risks that are being immediate and imminent risks to this Jewish community of staff and students at the university. I will get to the point where I will summarize these 4 points, but this is very important as an analysis of our understanding of the actual risks at universities. The second thing that we want to recommend is how to mitigate the risks and how to approach governments. Governments in Europe, and in particular in the UK, where I'm based and work, and have been working for years on radicalization and terrorism, need to understand, especially following the massacre of innocent civilians on October 7th, that the risk is not only to Jewish members of staff and students at universities, but rather the risk is a national threat on British soil as well as on German, France soils and other countries. So the recommendation is that we need to approach the governments and explain the fact to prove and to provide evidence that there are Hamas activists on campuses first. And we need to show evidence that there are Hamas terrorists on campuses. Second thing, we have to recommend to governments not to allow visas to students that are coming from Gaza being supported by Hamas from universities like Birzeit, to explain to governments that there is a need, an urgent need, to stop institutional anti-Semitism and racism by recruitment of terrorists. Stop funding and stop providing visas. The third thing that we talked about, what we do in case that the government is not providing funding to universities, but rather the funding comes from a different channel or route. In this case, we need to look at the regulator. We also talked about different policies. So we looked at safeguarding policy, Freedom of Speech Act, Bullying and Harassment Policy, Dignity and Respect Policy, Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Policy, and the IHRA definition, which are not being respected, and we want to highlight it in front of governments. We had one member, your representative in our panel, that actually he summarized all the points that we talked about. I don't have it here with me, so what I did say, just briefly what we talked about.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you very much for that comprehensive summary. Moving on, for the chairman of how can we work with governments on national public awareness campaigns against anti-Semitism. That was session 3. Mr. Senderovitz.
Hello, dear colleagues, friends. Our group we had a very meaningful discussion, reached many conclusions. I will read the main ones. First, build a shared database of national strategies documenting what has worked and what hasn't worked in each country. Collaborate with Jewish media to amplify visibility of our issues because politicians seek public exposure. Third, establish direct contact with public prosecutors and prioritize training of police and legal authorities on identifying and prosecuting anti-Semitic hate crimes. Fourth, follow the money from NGOs because the reports are used by the media, for instance, to accuse Israel of genocide. Fifth, create a booklet of key concepts, Zionism, anti-Semitism, diaspora, to support consistent public dialogue. We need to differentiate the terminology clearly. Thank you very much.
And last, but by no means least, the final session, Chairman, please, for cross-border Jewish unity. How can communities work together to amplify their voice? Do we have a Chris? Come on up.
So great. We had a lively discussion in a very noisy room. And what we came up with on collaboration is 3 action items which we took away. And I believe it was by Morris also mentioned prior already what those action items are. The first one is to create a digital hub, a digital place where we can all get together, where we can share information, upload information, have discussions, and be in touch with one another. But also, and that's the second point, to create a unified message. So we cannot have like everyone creating their own messages and explanations. We need to come up with dogmas. We need to come up with ideas like bring them home, which is easy to resonate, easy to accept, and easy to explain. It's in the trend of Black Lives Matter. So digital hub messaging, and the last one is a staff that create a pan-European task force with people that are knowledgeable and can help drive the message out. Okay, we're not competing in any way with Hamasbara through a Hasbara, but we need to be more direct, more straightforward, simple messaging, work together, and therefore we believe a digital hub is going to be key. So those are the 3 main action items.
Thank you, Chris. You're welcome. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for those. Now, this is going to look like a bit of trickery, and I can assure you it's not. While you guys were having your panel, our team was feverishly, because we took the recommendations from you at the conclusion of your breakout sessions, and we have with us, and it's just about to be screened, a EGA resolution, which I'm going to run through in a minute. But before I do that, I would like to say some of the breakout sessions, all of them came up with extremely valid points. It's an extremely useful exercise. The EGA is a democratic organization, and even though some of your points will not be reflected in a resolution, which at the end of the day is going to national governments, and some of the action items which you pointed out are more for us to do as Jewish communities and communicate on together, you can rest assured that they will be operative solutions for the EGA, such as, and there's a message that came out loudly and clearly for that central database for messaging, which is key to ensure that we can all communicate. So I just wanted to make that clear. And once I've run through the resolution, I'm going to invite our chairman, Rabbi Menachem Margolin, up on stage, because the chairman will need to call a vote of this plenary, which we will do by show of hands, and hopefully get this resolution approved, which is, after all, based on your own recommendations. It would be something if a Jewish conference couldn't approve and agree on its own recommendations. But let's see what we can do. So I'm going to move to this microphone, which is going to be easy. So, motion proposed at the EGA Annual Conference, May 13th, 2025. We, Jewish leaders and Jewish communities present at the Annual Conference of the European Jewish Association in Madrid today, 13th of May, 2025, have voted to adopt the following resolution. Given the record increases in anti-Semitism and the associated existential threat to Jewish lives in Europe, and given the lack of meaningful action taken by a majority of governments to date to reverse these record increases and this existential threat, call for a European Court of Human Rights-led and European Council and Commission-led universal legal definition of anti-Semitism to apply in all member states and enforceable universally in the criminal code. Calls on European governments to remind all European citizens in countrywide publicity campaigns of their obligations as Europeans to adhere to European values of tolerance and respect. In short, the publication of a Citizens' Charter. Calls on policymakers and education regulators to make universities a priority area for scrutiny. We must foster a climate of institutional accountability for universities, reviewing and conditioning funding based on adherence to basic academic standards, holding university leadership to account for excluding Jewish voices, and tolerating and/or fostering anti-Semitic environments. Additionally, we call on governments to treat campus radicalization as a national security concern. We call on public prosecutors and policing authorities to cooperate with Jewish communities, prioritizing legal authority and police forces on identifying and prosecuting anti-Semitic hate crime. Calls on Jewish leaders, leadership there, calls on Jewish leadership to create a pan-European task force that coordinates key action items across countries and communities, led by a central body that will oversee, aligns, and drive collective efforts. Instructs the European Jewish Association to forward to all EU institutions and European governments. And the last bit, I can't read out until Menachem Margolin joins me on stage. We must follow the protocols. So, with your permission, ladies and gentlemen, with the chairman of the European Jewish Association with me, I put the following resolution to the floor of our conference. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That is voted. As we said, that resolution will be forwarded forthwith to all the EU institutions and the national governments for their consideration. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Before I hand over to Rabbi Margolin, very, very briefly, after we close conference, lunch will be served upstairs. At 1:45, we intend to meet in the lobby of a hotel. There will be buses for the start of our tour to Madrid. One of the buses will be clearly marked for airport. That means that when we return from Madrid, that bus will be going directly to the airport. All other buses will be coming back to the hotel. But it'll all be clearly marked. Of course, our stewards here at the EGA will be there to guide you and make sure you get on the right bus. And that's it from me. I have a great privilege of standing beside this great man, Rabbi Menachem Margolin, who will now close the conference. Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Alex. Ladies and gentlemen, excellencies, colleagues, leaders of Jewish communities, I would like to officially thank you for being with us today. I would like to thank each one of you for the great and dedicated work you do in your communities. We heard from almost each one of you about the challenges you are facing, the struggle you are going through. We really admire each one of you for your work, for your dedication, for the time, for the efforts that you do and you put together in order to keep your communities going successfully to the next generation to come. I would like to take the opportunity to thank our partners who co-organized together with us this conference, the Action Protection League from Hungary, the World Zionist Organization, the Federation of Jewish Communities of Spain. Big thank you to local Jewish community of Madrid for this collaboration. I would like also to thank the leaders of the EGA Jewish Council who came to be with us today and yesterday, Dr. Joel Mergui, Regine Sluzny, Riccardo Pacifici, Hélène Van Brach, Gabriel Sanderovic, Giorgio Schreiber, and of course also Estrella Ben Rio, thank you very much for the time you put together throughout the years to help, to advise, to guide, to lead us, and to tell us what direction we should take. A big and special thank you to Chief Rabbi Jacobs, the chairman of EGA Committee to Combat Anti-Semitism. I would like to say a big thank you to EGA team who worked so hard to put this conference together. A big thank you to Alex Benjamin, Vice Chairman of the European Jewish Association, who put greatly also the program together, and this is the face that everybody will always recognize, and not because of his glasses. I would like to say a big thank you to Ruth Wasserman-Lande, who is your main contact at our organization, who lead the relationship with Jewish communities and organization. And a big thank you also to Hodaya, who assisted Ruth Wasserman. A big thank you to Tal Rabina, the head of our strategy, who is here always at the back of the room, but we do not move without getting his permission. So a big thank you, Tal Rabina. A big thank you also to Yossi Lemkovich. A big thank you to Nir Natan, to David Kalfa, to Oliver Bradley. I would like to say a big thank you also to Meital Nachmias, who you saw her today for the first time, who leads our social media. A big thank you to Shlomo Dehan, the head of our legal department, and of course, Anastasia Helholk, who welcomed you all at the registration desk, but who were in touch with you during the preparation of this conference. A big thank you to Juan Caldes, our representative for Spain. And there are many more people at the team, but I did not mention them because they are not here with us today, but they are busy to fulfill our resolution already. A big thank you, each one of you, again, for making the effort to be with us today. We will do the best, we promise, to do the best, to take the resolutions and to take the conclusions of the different sessions in order to bring it to the attention of leaders of Europe. And I promise you that we will continue to work as hard as possible until, God willing, our mission will be accomplished. God bless you all, and thank you very much.